Okay, so today I'm going to be doing my Buddy Reads monthly wrap, talking all the books that I buddy read in the month of August. This is something that is a new addition to my channel. I want to do this so I can have more time to focus on wrapping up my buddy reads because there's a limited amount of time for standard monthly wraps, and also it's going to effectively save me time because then when I get to the monthly wrap I can just link you guys back to this one and have more time to talk about those ones as well. So it works both ways. Let's jump right in. So for the month of September I read a total of 3 buddy reads, 2 classics and 1 fantasy. 2 of them were adult and 1 of them was middle grade. My star ratings were 2 5-stars and 1 3-star. So let's get right into it. I'm going to discuss these books in the order that I buddy read them. So the first book that I buddy read for the month of August was this book, Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is book number 3 in the Nevermore series. It's a middle grade fantasy, and I gave this book 4 stars. I misquoted when I said I have 2 5-stars. I gave this book 4 stars. So once again, I had 1 5-star, 1 4-star, and 1 3-star. I gave this book 4 stars. So this book continues on with the Nevermore series. I have done a review for this book. I'll link it somewhere with a card so that you can check that out if you want to. I'm just going to talk spoiler-free here about my overall thoughts when it came to this book. I thought this book was good. I really did. But I can't upgrade and say that this was great or fantastic. I think comparatively to books number 1 and 2, that this book felt like middle book syndrome in a way, because things just weren't as amazing as they were with books 1 and 2. 4 stars is still a solid rating, so it is definitely above average. It was not a 3-star read. It just wasn't a 5-star read. I love the world of Nevermore. I think Jessica Townsend has done an amazing job creating this wonderful, whimsy, wondrous world. I want to live there. And that's all thanks to Jessica Townsend and the way that she writes these worlds. Her world building is fantastic. My issue with the books, and mostly with book number 3 thus far, is that it is singular perspective. Now, I understand that this is a middle grade series, so it will be easier for those that the series is initially targeted to for it to be a singular perspective. But the problem with it being a singular perspective is the limitations that come with that. Wherever Morrigan Crow goes, we get to follow her. But wherever Morrigan Crow isn't, we don't get to see. And I just have been having more of an issue with that as the series has gone on. I feel like Jessica Townsend really has missed some opportunities for some amazing world building that could occur, even if it was just a dual perspective and we were following another character. Again, I won't give away spoilers, but another character by the name of Jupiter. If it was a dual perspective between Morrigan and Jupiter, I feel like we would know a whole lot more, and that would make the book even more amazing. It's not like this series is a thriller mystery series. Unlike it being a thriller, I don't feel we need to have secrets here, there, and everywhere as far as things that Morrigan doesn't know, we can't know as readers. So I do feel let down by that. And I do feel that it stifles the world building quite a bit, actually. I also did not like the way this book ended. I felt like I saw it coming as we got towards the end, and then when what happened actually happened, it really let me down, and now I'm nervous to pick up book number 4, which I have misquoted in the past. Book number 4 is coming out in October of 2022, not October of 2021, so I'm going to be waiting a while. But I feel a little bit anxious to pick up book number 4 because Morrigan has been placed into a bit of a pickle, and book number 4 will follow on from said pickle. I can't say more than that because that would definitely be a spoiler. But all in all, I absolutely love this series, despite the fact that this book did receive the lowest rating of the 3 I've read, the 3 that are out so far. It's still 4 stars, so it's still a good rating, and I do highly recommend this series. If you are coming off a bookish hangover from the Harry Potter series, this is a great series to turn your attention to. While the Nevermore series and the Harry Potter series are not the same, the first 3, I think it's either 3 or 4 books in the Harry Potter series are middle grade, and this is a middle grade series. Both of them are fantasies. Both of them have a ton of great world building and magic. So with those similarities, I feel that that will help if you are having a bookish hangover with the Harry Potter series. This is perfect to dive into. A dear shout out to my dear cat friend on the cover there, Mr. Finestra. I just love this wonder cat is actually how I should refer to it as. I love Finestra so much. If fantasy, middle grade fantasy, cure of a Harry Potter hangover is not enough for you, how about a world where there is a magnificently huge cat known as a Magnificat by the name of Finestra, who is as sassy as they come? If that is not going to convince you to read the series, I don't know what is, because Finestra is just so good. So I do highly recommend it, despite the slight drop in ratings from books 1 and 2 to book 3. I do still think that they are amazing, and I do highly recommend them. I enjoyed buddy reading this over on my Discord. We had a really good time with it. So yeah, we all highly recommend. My next 2 and final 2 books that I buddy read were classics. I age range my classics as adult books. I'm going to discuss that soon enough, why I do that. But in case there's any confusion and you're thinking, but Mr. Francy, that's not an adult classic, that's just what I do. Keeping that in mind, the second book that I buddy read was this book, The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And I gave this book 5 stars. So the premise of this book is that we're following a girl whose name is Mary Lennox. Mary was raised in India up to a certain age. She's still a child when a disastrous thing occurs. Both her parents, her mother and her father, who really have no time for her to be real, she's raised mainly by servants, die of cholera. So Mary is transported from India over to London, where her only living relative, Mr. Craven. So she goes over to see Mr. Craven, and she goes over to live with Mr. Craven at Misselthwaite Manor. When she is dropped off at the station, London station or wherever it is, she's picked up by the housekeeper, Mrs. Medlock, who on the way to Misselthwaite Manor tells Mary Lennox, there's nothing there for you to do. You're going to have to entertain yourself. Your uncle's not going to care about you because he doesn't really care about anybody. So Mary arrives at Misselthwaite Manor all alone, with no one caring about her, and because she was practically raised by servants as a spoiled, plain, rude child. And that is a direct quote from Frances Hodgson Burnett. Mary goes through an amazing character arc in this book. The one thing I want to point out to you guys about how fabulously beautiful this book is the culture within this book, the world building of a classic, if you will. This book is built around the beautiful yet simplistic beauty of animals and nature, as you can probably guess by the title, The Secret Garden. Mary comes to learn that Mr. Craven locked up a secret garden when his wife passed away, and it has not been open for 10 years. Because Mary has little to nothing to do, she becomes plagued with thoughts of trying to find the garden and get into the garden. I received mixed reactions during the course of the buddy read of this book. Some of you who buddy read this book with me over on my Discord thought it was as beautiful as I did and really appreciated the nature and the animals. Some of you thought it was going to be completely different to what it was. So I just want to make a point here because I think it's good to know this going in. This is a classic, and in no way, shape or form should this book be viewed as a fantasy, because it is not a fantasy. So The Secret Garden, I can say this much, is a garden. It's literally a garden. It's not a garden of whimsy and wonder. It's just a garden. So please do know that going in. But it is such a beautiful read. I cannot highly recommend this book enough. Frances Hodgson Burnett also wrote A Little Princess, and I'm going to be reading that book at some point soon. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but I'm going to read that at some point soon, so I'm going to read more of her works. But I gave this book 5 stars. I definitely highly recommend it, especially if you are someone who has read a ton of dark books, whether it be grim dark fantasy or just dark fantasy that has dark elements in general, or thrillers or horrors or whatever, and you want something to refresh you. The Secret Garden is the way to go. This is just a beautiful classical feeling book that will just really refresh you and have you ready to go off on your next adventure. So 5 stars from me. And the final book that I read was this book, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is also an adult classic, and I gave this book 3 stars. I have a rant discussion review of this book that is spoiler free, and I'll link it wherever it links, wherever the card pops down. Okay, I had issues, and here's the good news for those of you who really want to read this book, or those of you who have read this book and love it. I, like the cheese, stood alone with my views on this book. Most of the people, well actually everyone that I buddy read this book with ended up loving this book, whether they loved it to begin with or they loved it towards the end. They all found a way to love the book. I was the odd man out. I did not love this book. So the basic premise of this book is that it is a pirating book. That's the first thing I can say to you. If you're not a fan of pirates, it's a pirating book, so just be mindful of that. I don't know if I am. This was my first pirating book, but coming off of this book, if I had to judge just based on this book, I'm not a fan of pirating adventure books. But anyway, this is a pirating adventure book. At the beginning of the book, we are following a boy whose name is Jim Hawkins. Due to a set of circumstances, Jim Hawkins comes across a treasure map, so he assembles a crew together and they go and try and find this treasure. Things happen along the way. It is very much a sea tide ship thing. I don't know. I'm not up to date with terminology of these adventure piratey books, so I don't know what to call them. If it was a fantasy, I will be able to tell you. I'd be able to say it's high fantasy with hard magic systems and and you know, it's an epic fantasy with epic world building, but I don't know what the terminology is, so I'm not going to be good with that with this book, and I'm sorry. But basically, it is an adventure on the high seas. Does that work? I hope so. Now, my biggest issue with this book by far and away was the writing style. This book was written in the early 1800s, which makes it a writing style from the Victorian era. I was not aware of the Victorian era of writing style as a thing in general, so there you go. But some of you that I buddy read this book with, and then I spoke to people outside the buddy group as well, were giving me lessons on Victorian era writing style, and yeah, to summarize for those of you who have not read Victorian era writing style, it is arguably one of the most challenging writing styles to read, and I'm not saying that from my own personal opinion and perspective. A lot of people that I've talked to about the Victorian era of writing style have objectively said to me it is one of the toughest writing styles there is to read, because it couldn't be more different to modern day writing. So I've even read more modern written historical fictions that are written in their own, you know, flowery writing style. They're easier to read. I DNF'd Nevernight by J. Kristoff, but from what I got up to, that was easier to read than this book. And J. Kristoff's writing style, if you don't know, is incredibly flowery. But this was just really tough for me. So tough that after the first paragraph, I switched from physically reading it to physically reading while being accompanied by the audiobook, so that it would help me with the writing style while I was physically reading it. As far as the book overall, I did find it to be rather formulaic in that we had high action scenes and then we slow down, and then more high action scenes and then it slows down again, and then more high action scenes and then it slows down again. And I loved the high action scenes. I thought they were fantastic. They were incredibly captivating, but when everything slowed down and we were kind of dealing with the aftermath of the high action scenes, I did find that to be rather boring. It's not always the case with me. There are some high epic fantasies, Mr. Sanderson, that I read where when we're dealing with the aftermath and we're just kind of, calming down from an action scene, that I do find intriguing. But in this book, I just didn't enjoy those particular scenes. I found one of the characters in this book, who you may have heard of before, his name is Long John Silver, to be so completely captivating. If I were to assign a personality trait to him, it would be that of charisma. The pirate is so completely charismatic that I found no matter what he did, I was always up for a conversation with him, and I always seemed to like him, which is interesting because I can say that Long John Silver is morally grey as a person. So, that is what it is. Anyway, I gave the book 3 stars. I appreciate having read it. I grew up having seen 2 adaptations of Treasure Island as a film and listening to a incredibly condensed half an hour children's version of an audiobook of this many, many times growing up. So to get the real bones of the story, the original canonical work, I'm really happy that I read this. But would I rush to reread it? Not really. I just don't think that it was the book for me, and maybe I should try another pirating adventure book at some point, but it didn't really work out for me, so I don't know. If you would love to see me read a pirating book that you know that I might enjoy, let me know what that book is in the comment section below, or come along over to our Discord and leave the suggestion over there either way, because I would love to enjoy reading pirate books with you guys, but this one just didn't work for me. And now for everyone's favourite game, probably the easiest version so far, of the game that we like to call Up, 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 Up. This was so easy. These are the books that I buddy read for the month of August. What did you buddy read if you did in the month of August? Let me know that in the comments section below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching once again, and, of course, happy reading!